Hi, this is Ashley Agner, and here is my writing action plan. So, the problem of practice that will be addressed is the teaching of writing skills to seventh grade students with poorer writing skills. And a part of my plan also helps to enhance and enrich the writing skills of those students who do have those basic foundations for writing. If you take a look at figure one on the right, we took a look at the most recent reading comprehension assessment versus the most recent writing assessment, and we took the average for each class. And the reading comprehension tests averaged at 84%, and the writing assessments averaged at 76%. So this data shows us that there is a writing deficit within the seventh graders compared to their reading comprehension skills, which leads us to our practice of problem being to teach those different writing skills using a variety of strategies. So the current research to support that students do have writing deficits, two that stood out were every year in the United States, large number of adolescents graduate from high school unable to write at the basic level required by colleges or employers. Students need to be taught these proper writing skills, or they will not be set up for success beyond academics. Every school day, 7,000 young people drop out of high school, many of them because they lack the basic literacy skills to meet the growing demands of the high school curriculum. So, as a middle school, we should be really concerned with these statistics and doing everything we can to close the gap now. That way, by the time they do enter high school, they are well equipped to handle the growing demands. So that kind of leads us to what can be done ultimately about this writing deficit and what strategies can be used and developed through our action plan. So, anytime that a writing strategy is given, there's a method of delivery. So, when it comes to writing strategies, the method of delivery is typically the self regulated strategy development. So, it's really important that with whatever strategy is talked about, that we go ahead and teach students the strategy. We then describe why it's used or helpful. We need them to buy into it. We model the strategy for students. This would be done in exemplars. We have students memorize the strategy. They have to know each step. We provide scaffolds and supports for students to try the strategy, and then ultimately have students carry out this strategy independently. So, when we talk about some of the strategies later on, keeping in mind this is the way that they would be implemented and delivered. So, the first strategy is using the acronym PLAN. This is a really basic writing strategy, and it kind of develops that really foundation for writing in young students. So, it's to pay attention to the prompt. They have to make sure that they've answered the question. They're listing the main idea. They're adding supporting details. So they're providing the rationale and defending their answers, and then numbering their ideas and, using transitions and things like that. So this is really just those really foundation writing skills that some students don't have, whether it's just that they're a struggling learner, maybe they have a specific learning disability in writing. So this is something that would be addressed with the strategy plan. The second strategy is using the acronym WRITE. So this kind of takes it one step further and work from your plan, not necessarily the plan strategy, but work from whatever plan you have to develop a thesis statement, remember your goals, include transition words for each paragraph, try to use different kinds of sentences, and then exciting and interesting $10,000 words. So this, like I said, kind of allows students to show their voice, their style, their craft in their writing beyond just the foundations of answering whatever question it was that was asked or whatever prompt they're being asked to write about. The third strategy is the use of quick writes. So quick writes are small periods of time, about 10 minutes, where students are just given a prompt and they can respond however they please. Quick writes allow for multiple brief practice sessions, supporting fluency development and building a pattern of success. So we really see a lot of writing stamina increase when using quick writes in a classroom. And the idea that if their writing stamina is increased, then they're able to go back and do the necessary edits and revising and checking over to make sure that they've included all necessary components of a given rubric. A fourth strategy then is the use of both plan and write. So it makes sense for us to really hit those foundational skills, whether it's being taught for the first time or a review for some students, and then allowing them to take it one step further and challenge themselves into developing really that craft style, and authors their voice as a writer and how they want to use their vocabulary and transition words and things like that. So taking a look at all of those, we have to weigh the impact and feasibility. So implementing the plan strategy, a medium impact, right? It would help those writers who are really struggling, but, it really wouldn't do anything for those writers who, scored above that 76 average. It would definitely help the lowers, but not the higher, and highly feasible. It wouldn't take too long just to teach that. If we were to implement the right strategy, again, a low medium, some students would be ready for that. Some students might not be ready for that because they don't have those basic foundations. So again, it would help those students that scored above that 76%, but maybe not the ones that scored below and lack that basic foundation of writing. And again, a high feasibility. It'd be quick just to kind of teach that one on its own. Providing more quick write opportunities. This would have a medium impact. It would definitely, like I said, increase their stamina, which would increase their drive and willingness to be able to go in and attend to editing and revising a paper. And a feasibility, though, would be medium. I mean, those require time, right? 10 minutes here and there, teachers going over it, providing feedback, finding patterns and things like that. So there definitely is more involved when it comes to the feasibility of that strategy. And then the fourth one being a combination of the plan and write. This would have a really high impact. It'd really reach all of our learners, some of those who are struggling, some of those who are maybe more gifted and accelerated. And the feasibility would be a medium to teach both of those well and implement them in your classroom. Would take a little bit more time than just them standing alone. So ultimately weighing kind of all of these options, I think the best strategy to go ahead forward with an action plan would be to use a combination of that plan and write. I just think it would reach so many more students. Everyone would benefit from it. And there is literature that shows that a multi-component program centered around writing process instruction can improve the writing performance of developing writers. And again, I think that write just goes beyond the developing writers, and can challenge and provide a challenge for those students who also need that and are in the space to do that. So what it would look like is for teachers, they would be explicitly teaching and modeling the steps in the plan strategy. They would explicitly teach and model the steps in the write strategy. They would provide students with checklists of plan and write. They would conference with students on plan and write, and they'd provide any feedback after students are independently implementing plan and write. For the students, they would know what plan and write stands for, right? They just have to know, the P is like, did I follow the prompt? Did I list my ideas? And things like that. When it comes to knowing just what the steps are, and what's involved in each step, right? I mean, the T or the I is to integrate different transitions and write. Well, do they even know what a transition word is? So we have to take it beyond that. And then they're able to use it in any writing piece in any class. We really want that generalization across the curriculum. So the classrooms, all classrooms would display posters with the plan and write steps listed out so that students know that's the expectation. When I'm doing a lab write-up, when I'm doing a document-based analysis, whether it's in science or social studies, I'm using these strategies to enhance my writing. And then allowing for flexible seating, right? I mean, we're writing, we want their creative juices flowing, we want them in a comfortable place. So just providing them with comfortable, flexible seating and environments. Whether it's just on, flexible seating that is purchased for your room or just, under the table, like making their own little world, so that they can really dive into their writing. And then student work. So demonstrate the students' ability to build on the foundations of writing and provide quality work across all subject areas anytime they're asked to do any writing. So here is the draft action plan. So my learner-centered problem is that students are having trouble meeting writing requirements, and this can range. Some students are struggling meeting just those basic requirements of including all necessary components of a rubric, while some students maybe aren't adding that craft voice style with the transition words, those $10,000 words, and we really want to enhance their vocabulary. Our problem of practice is that as teachers, we do not provide students with a consistent checklist and use the same language across all subject areas. So it's important that when we're giving students like outlines to start planning their writing, we all use the plan strategy. The language should look the same. They're doing the same things when they're asked to provide transitions, whether it's for steps on writing a lab write-up, right? We want them to use those transitions that they're familiar with in their language arts class in that class as well, just to show their, caliber of writing. And then the instructional strategy is that as teachers, we're going to implement and teach the plan and write strategies into all subjects. So it's kind of broken up into different sections. So first and foremost, it's important for the language arts coach to teach the LA and SPED teachers the plan and write strategy. So we want to front load LA teachers, since they're going to be the ones that are implementing it in their classrooms first. It's important for them to see the whole scope and sequence of this kind of curriculum so that they know exactly where it's going and where students are going to end up through the process. So that could be done week 1 during an LA department meeting. So at my school, each department meets once, sometimes twice if needed a week. It'd be very easy just to implement that into their plan for that week. Then starting week 2, language arts teachers are explicitly teaching the plan strategy. And again, this is going above just here's what it is. It's, do you know what each letter stands for? Do you know what that looks like in your writing? Then week 3, we move to language arts teachers modeling the plan strategy using the class exemplar. So that class exemplar that we write together, we show them how we're working through the plan strategy. And then language arts teachers conference with students on their ability to implement the plan strategy. So now that students are doing it on whatever writing prompt it is that they're doing, we're conferencing with them to see if they can do it, whether we're working in small groups or students are doing it on their own. We're providing feedback via comments on Google Doc. Then it's important that if all teachers of any subject are given are to be using this, they need to be given training on this as well. And we thought for them, it would be important to break it down into 2 separate parts. So they only need to sit and attend and listen to the plan strategy first. And this can be done anytime during weeks 2 through 4, since students aren't expected to be using it across the curriculum quite yet. And so at our school, in addition to department meetings, we also have team, like grade level team meetings. So this can be done at any time during that team meeting time through weeks 2 through 4. And then once all teachers are aware of this strategy, all teachers would discuss their expectations for students to use the plan strategy in their class. So science teachers would be like, hey, listen, when you're doing this lab write-up, it's important that you're using this plan strategy to plan your writing. Or if you're doing a document-based analysis in social studies, this is what you need to use. And that would be done in week 5. Moving on to then the second part of this being the right strategy, is that language arts teachers will explicitly teach the right strategy. Remember, they were already given training on this in week 1. Language arts teachers model that using their exemplar. And then language arts teachers conference with students looking very similar to the plan, but just using the right strategy. Here's where you can even throw in some differentiation. Maybe you have students with a writing disability or severe deficits that just quite aren't ready for this right. If you have a co-teacher or the use of an instructional assistant or another support staff, you can even have them just reviewing the plan strategy while other students are moving on. Or, here's where you're doing some differentiation of, instead of asking students just to give us transition, you're providing a list of transition words that they can use, or a list of those $10,000 words to build their vocabulary if they don't have the base for it. So this could look a little different depending on your student. Again, teachers of all subject areas would need to be trained on this, and they can do this anytime between week 5 and 7 now, because again, students are only learning about an LA class, and then that week 9 is when they're going to be going through in each of their classes and saying, again, we expect this caliber of writing from you. We know that you've done it in LA, you've learned about it, we're expecting it as well. And again, we have to figure out, is this working? So at the end of all of this, teachers will gather different formative assessments throughout this process. Those formative assessments will give us data on, do the students understand the steps? Can they simply tell us the steps? Then can they tell us what each step means? Can students apply each steps independently, or do they still require some support? And then are students using these strategies in their writing across the curriculum? I think those would be really good checks here and there, because again, if they can't do one, then we maybe got to back up a little bit, maybe spend extra time or another week on one of them. And if they're not using these strategies across the curriculum, like what can we do? How many different reminders can we give them or prompts can we give them to make sure that they're using it? And then I also think it'd be important for teachers to give a summative assessment, very similar to the assessment that was given to gather the data in figure 1. So whatever the assessment was like, where students scored an average of 76% on it, we would give something very similar, maybe with a different prompt or content. And if this process worked, we would expect to see the students' writing scores increase, and we'd expect to see a higher average on that same writing assessment, but when the students all use that plan and write strategies. So this would be my action plan for writing. Thanks for listening.